Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor with Stone Payton, another episode of GSUENI Radio. Stone.
Hey, man, we are hitting our stride today. We're broadcasting live from the Georgia State University Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. Anybody who ever listens to us knows how much fun that we have when we're down here. We're catching up with some old friends, making some new ones. Second episode in a row, though, without faculty,
I know,
board chairs, and the muckety
no
mucks.
Adults.
Man, we're in the belly of the beast down here, right? Where the rubber meets the road. Two very passionate, bright entrepreneurs. You're really going to enjoy visiting with them. First up, please join me in welcoming to the broadcast founder and CEO with Psynchronicity, Miss Amber Lewter. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, Amber, before we get too far into things, tell us about Synchronicity. How are you serving folks?
Sure. So we provide group and individual trainings on establishing work-life balance, specifically for tech startups and businesses in the tech industry.
So you find a lot of them are a little out of whack when it comes to work-life balance?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a 24/7 always-on culture where, there's a lot of workaholism. There's a lot of drive to get things done, and especially in entrepreneurship, things are go, go, go. So a lot of people are, stressed, anxious, just overwhelmed in general.
Now, did you find this niche organically? How'd you come up with startups you could have went with lawyers, you could have went with CPAs. A lot of people struggle with work-life balance.
Sure, that's a great question. So personally, my background is entrepreneurship, so I have lived it and witnessed kind of the stress involved in that way of living and working personally, but also just the realization, it's called the law of accelerating returns. Essentially, in the 21st century, humans are going to experience roughly 20,000 years of change over the course of 100 years. And realistically, none of us is psychologically or emotionally prepared to deal with that. And
except you and your firm.
Exactly. We're here. We know how to help you. But,
exactly.
But people in the tech industry are really kind of on the front lines of that experience. It's rapid. It's never-ending demands. And whether it's positive or negative stress, your brain and your body still register it as stress.
Now, do you find that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of lean into this expectation of I got to be 24/7, I got to be doing this, I can't waste any time because I'm already behind. They believe that the only way to do more is to be on all the time, and then don't you hit a point of kind of diminishing returns with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Burnout. Right. So I think that's kind of the mindset. And there's a truth piece to it, right? Like that there is a certain level of commitment
required as part of the lifestyle, right?
Absolutely. But if you're not mindful about that and you do not have support in place, the likelihood that you're going to be successful is just not very great, because we all have a capacity and we hit that capacity at some point.
So now what are some of the tools you give the entrepreneur in order to create this balance?
Sure. It's a variety of things. Some of it is conflict resolution skills. Some of it is training around emotional intelligence. It's really unique and specific to the organization and the individual.
So how does it work? So how do they know they're out of whack, that they need your help?
Well, a lot of them know my background's in mental health. So I'm a licensed professional counselor. Historically, that's been my past. And so people tend to realize they're burnt out because their life starts falling apart, right? Like they're either just unmotivated, they're not able to get anything done, and or they just can't get out of bed. Like the idea of doing anything it's just not motivating for them.
So that isn't a balance. So then it seems like they're not working if they're in bed.
I guess it's a balance.
Like they've hit a balance.
Yeah, the balance is burnout and collapse, essentially. And beyond just the tech industry, the research is coming in recently. Last week I saw, I believe on Facebook, that it has been actually identified as a mental health condition now by the World Health Organization.
That burnout is a mental health condition.
Yeah, that is. The records are just off the charts of how many people are reporting just being depressed or unmotivated or overwhelmed by everything that needs to get done in their life.
So now some of this kind of creeps up on a person, right? Like they think like I got it all together.
Sure.
And then it starts like one more hour, or I'll just work on this thing, and all of a sudden it's midnight or it's 2 a.m. and I'm still working on this thing. What are some things that a person could be doing to kind of get ahead of this?
A great starting point is just trying to be a little bit more mindful of when you're getting close to empty, not pushing yourself past that. So when you're having that moment of like, should I work another hour? Do I need to get this done? We like to think that more hours equals more productivity, but in truth, there's a certain point where that's just not true. Once you exceed about 50 hours of work in a week for most people, especially if it's high demand work, like anything that takes creativity or originality, you can't exceed that point, or what the quality of what you're doing just goes downhill really fast. And so if you could be more mindful in that moment of like, should I work another hour? It's what's the quality of work I'm actually going to create in that hour?
Mm-hmm. So now tell me about your kind of entrepreneurial journey. You said you started out as a certified?
So yeah, I'm a therapist. Licensed counselor, but my journey actually starts, before that. I had an event planning company, started it in 2004. So what was that, 15 years ago? Oh my gosh. Yeah, 15 years ago. Wow. When I was first out of college. So had an event planning company, did that for about a decade. Then came back to school at Georgia State, got my master's in counseling. I've had a private practice.
So what drew you to counseling from event planning?
It's a great question. I've always wanted to help people, and I liked doing event planning, but it didn't have the sense of purpose that I was looking for. It also required a tremendous amount of nights and weekends, and I knew I wanted to have a family, and that just was not going to be a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. So it was a few things.
Haven't you ever tried to plan an event? There's more work stressful than you can shake a stick at right there in that industry, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of competition in that industry as well.
So then you go back to school, and what was your experience at Georgia State like?
It was great. So I got my master's and my EDS at the College of Education in professional counseling.
Was it an evening thing, or were you kind of back in school and going?
I was like working 2 or 3 jobs and going to school.
Oh, wow.
And but it was great. It was really flexible. The program truly just changed my life, like as an individual, how I live, what I believe was greatly impacted by that experience.
So you learned like kind of lessons from the going to school for you personally of how to cope and manage stress and things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're not going to hide anything in that program, right? Because if you're not willing to get real, then you're not going to be successful in that field. So it was great.
So what was the first aha moment that you were like, I got to be real here?
Oh man, I would say in my conflict resolution class, it was mind blowing. I felt like my mind exploded because I always thought it was like win-lose, right? Like you either win or you lose. And
you
here was
probably
this.
Didn't like to lose.
Well, who likes to lose, right? Like, come on, especially as an entrepreneur, nobody wants to lose. But this class truly transformed the way that I looked at the world. I mean, just understanding just that there are so many other options out there over win-lose, and just how you choose to approach things really defines the outcome a lot of time.
So do you find that a lot of people are stuck on kind of a mindset, and then you got to kind of open their mind to other possibilities?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about expanding, right? So just introducing new concepts, and what the person chooses is going to be true for them is kind of unique. But the more that we get curious about the way that we think, the more room we have to grow. When we get really rooted in like, this is the only way, that really contributes to feeling stuck and feeling like I don't have choice and I don't have control of my own life.
Do you find that a lot of people fall into that kind of, I don't want to say kind of victim mentality, but it's that they don't think that they have control. They think that they are just kind of floating around and they don't have real control over issues that maybe they do if they looked at things differently?
Yes, I think there's a lot going on socially and politically that's reinforcing some of these ideas around the limitations of personal choice. And it's easy to buy into that when there's so much fear in the media.
So how do you help your clients? Like talk to me through an engagement. So I say, okay, I'm going to hire Synchronicity. We're having issues here at my company. Or do you work with only companies, or it can be an individual?
So it's a combination of both. We initially go in and kind of do a consultation with the business and assess, what are some of the needs that maybe the HR department sees. And then do a group training. And then from there, identify if individuals need support beyond just the educational content.
And is this support, is it coaching, or is it kind of a workshop or a class?
So the group part is a training. It's live and in person. But the follow-up, the individual piece starts out as face-to-face counseling, like an intake session. And then from there, you have the option to move into more remote services. So you could do it over the computer or over the phone to really help first build trust, right? Because that's what we know actually helps people in a coaching or a counseling situation, is we have to have that trust there. But then transitioning into a more remote mode, like whether that's over the internet or over your phone, to make the most of our time, right? Because everybody these days is short on time. And if you have to drive to somebody's office and then drive back to work, that's a lot of time.
So now, are your clients here locally in Atlanta, or you have clients anywhere? Because I guess you can do some of this remote stuff anywhere.
Sure. So right now it's in Atlanta. We do intend to move into other cities moving forward, but right now it's local.
So how do you get your clients now?
A variety, word of mouth, social media, just a variety of different marketing.
Now, is there any kind of initiatives you're working on right now? Do you have partners or collaborating with anybody?
So I am working currently with a few of my other female entrepreneur friends on ideas around how to combine our services with diversity initiatives, how to help take things beyond just checking the box and actually teaching employees how to advocate for themselves in pro-social ways, right? So not having negative confrontations at work, but really using strong interpersonal skills to make sure that they're able to say, you know what, I'm supposed to have this paternity leave, and so I'm going to take it. And doing that in a way that is for everybody, not against anybody.
Now, do you find that the organizations are open to this type of kind of work that you're doing, or is it a hard sell in there?
It depends on the organization, and it really is the pain point. It's who's got the pain, right? Like if it's devising a human capital strategy per se, like if the CFO can look at the numbers and say, we are not retaining employees, we've got to do something about this.
And that's a symptom of a problem, right?
Right.
If your turnover is getting out of control,
we got to do something.
It's also a bottom line ROI focused aspect of her work. This is not all soft, fluffy stuff. There's a genuine hard dollar return to this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of it. His turnover is costly. Yeah.
And even turnover and decreased productivity. You know, a lot of employers are reporting my employees are just not present. They're physically here, but they're on their phones or they're just not being productive. So helping devise strategies that will provide an ROI as well as help their employees become healthier, happier employees.
Now, how did your path take you into this entrepreneurial rather than I'm going to work at a social worker clinic or something like that?
That's a great question. I knew I wanted to be in private practice as a therapist, just because if you're going to actually be able to pay your bills, you have to make money. And so social work doesn't really pay much. And even counseling, if you're in a counseling center, pays pretty low. And it's a lot of energy to do it well. So I knew I wanted to be in private practice, and I enjoy my work in private practice, but I reached a point where I really felt my limit of both my impact and revenue.
And you were kind of waiting for people to come to you? Is that what private practice? Like, I don't know how the business of a counselor works. They just say, I'm a counselor, and then people are like, hey, I need a counselor.
It's tricky.
Google that.
It's tricky, right? Because there's still a lot of stigma around mental health where I think it's moving forward. They do.
I was like having a really hard time, call Amber. Like, does that happen? Or are people like kind of embarrassed? Like, I don't want to tell somebody I need help.
It happens some. So I specialize in couples counseling. So a lot of my referrals came from people that are doing a lot of individual work. Like they'd be working with an individual and realize, oh, this is more of a marital issue. So I would get referrals that way.
Like from an attorney, like maybe a divorce attorney or something like, hey, maybe.
Financial advisor. You ever been in a financial meeting?
That causes stress.
You watch a husband and wife talk about money, right?
Yeah. That's, you're hitting on some primal needs there. That's going to get intense pretty quick.
So then you went from that, and then you said, let me pivot to kind of the startup community?
So I was part of an incubator in Atlanta, and my focus was on teaching relationship skills. Mm-hmm. And what I realized over time is that's not the right pain point, right? That people will realize they have problems in their relationship, but it's it's when they're in crisis that they get help, right? Like divorce or affairs. And realizing I wanted to do something that helped people beforehand, right? And so it's a little bit different, but it's teaching a lot of the similar skills, but in the vein of to advance your career or to make you a better employee. And kind of with the secondary return of, good communication is good communication across the board. If you learn to communicate well, a conflict with your boss, you're probably going to be able to apply that at home as well.
Right. So then once you kind of made that mental shift from going to the, to the consumer, then to the business, did that help? Businesses said, yeah, we need some of that. Give me some of that.
There is a lot of interest. There is a lot of interest. And I'm still honing in on, the ideal, because each industry is unique, right? I think it's a little bit too generic to say, oh, we help everybody. That's not really true. There are specific industries that we're better prepared and more equipped to support.
And then how did you get your first clients?
Through my relationships. That I was a part of an incubator in the city that really helped me meet people live and in person and cultivate relationships. And I'm old school. I think that genuine relationships can certainly be fostered and encouraged over social media, but that getting out there, meeting people face to face and having real conversations is how you connect.
And then how'd you know you were onto something that this could have legs?
The realization that I've heard from so many of my clients and other people in my life that, we're at a point where there's not a lack of information, right? Like there's information everywhere, almost to our detriment. Most people are so overwhelmed by information, they get paralyzed. And so when people start listening to themselves and get clarity internally, that is incredibly powerful. And I see just transformations in people's lives that are unbelievable when they start remembering how to do that.
Now, any tips or low-hanging fruit for an individual that may be getting stressed?
Be honest with yourself. If you're getting stressed, the best thing that you can do is recognize that and try to find ways to be compassionate. It's too easy to get caught in the trap of I'm not doing enough. So it's counterintuitive, but sometimes you get more done when you do less because you're doing it better.
Good stuff. If somebody wanted to learn more about your firm or have an engagement with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. You can go to get.synchronicity.com.
And synchronicity is spelled a little
yes, that is.
Way,
it's spelled with a P, kind of like psychology.
Right.
It is a unique spelling of the word.
All right. Well, keep up the good work and keep us posted on your progress. This is important work, and as I was sharing with you earlier, I feel like there's this genuine hard dollar return to this kind of investment. Lee asked you about some low hanging fruit for the individual. What about the leader? What are some things as a leader we can do to just make the environment a little more conducive to less stress?
I think it's leading with intention. The more, people don't believe what you say as much as they believe what you do. So if you want to send a message to your employees or to your staff, it's by actually embodying the principles you're talking about, not just giving lip service. Because it's great to say, oh, I believe in self-care. Meanwhile, I'm working 70 hours a week, never taking vacation, modeling the mindset that I don't actually believe that.
So taking a 2-week Italy vacation is good for the business?
It can be. It certainly can be.
What do you call that? The audio has to match the video, or video match the audio. That's what it is. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you for having me. It was exciting to get to share it with y'all.
All right. Stay with us. We're going to visit with one more guest. All right, Lee, you ready for this one?
I am.
Okay, please join me in welcoming to the broadcast founder and chief artisan at Tulipcake Embroidery, Miss Katie Culp. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Did we lower your stress level even a notch or two maybe in that last segment?
I was half prepared to witness the two of you go into, your mediation session together to figure out how to better communicate.
I was doing all my deep breathing exercises. I was trying everything I could to stay
But it
calm.
is like a marriage. We've been in business together for 12 years.
Wow.
Lee founded the company. I say I founded Lee. I jumped on his coattails. He really started the thing, but I mean, we spend a lot of time together, and we probably
talk
need
about
something.
Communication, though. That's what you guys do
Critical,
primarily.
right? Yeah.
See how she's trying to She's counseling us.
I am also Tulipcake counseling.
That's a side hustle. Well, Katie, tell us about Tulipcake. How are you serving folks?
Yeah, so I have kind of a micro niche business here in Atlanta.
Micro niche.
It's
not a niche.
Yeah,
it's a niche within a niche.
It's even tinier. So my background is I've been a textile artist, for at least as a hobby for as long as I could remember. And then for a number of years, I was working in the costuming industry here in Atlanta, making costumes, being like a background costumer for small film and television projects, commercials, etc.
So what does that even mean? Costumer.
So, costuming.
What does costuming mean?
Essentially it's the clothing visual for everything on camera. So, everything that everybody is wearing is put there intentionally by, a team. And so
they don't just go into Macy's and buy stuff, or they're building all the costumes?
No, not necessarily. So there's a bunch of different ways you can go about it. So, the position of the costume designer is that, they are the one that decides what everybody is wearing.
The look.
Yeah. And then the costumer is, the person who actually, gets the clothing on the body. So you have to have the right size. Oftentimes things need to be altered or aged or dyed, adjusted a little bit to look lived in. But anywho, so I'm doing all this for a few years, and, I personally my favorite aspect of the job was the making things. And, one issue that we kept on running into, the community of kind of costuming professionals down here in Atlanta is that, specifically with the film industry, they need everything so fast that, they need local resources for pretty much all of these, different things that need to happen to the costume, including embroidery. So, if you think about your favorite film or television show, or even, a Hardee's commercial, there's probably a police officer or a surgeon or some kind of a uniformed professional on that show. There might even be a segment where somebody, is in a radio station, that has their branding on a shirt. And so any kind of on-camera situation that calls for that branding, they need completely custom embroidery done, and they need it now. And so
so they can't wait 2 days or 3 days.
Yesterday.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right?
So, because
there's hundreds of people waiting for
hundreds of people waiting, money is burning. There's really no replacement for, I need it right now. Mm-hmm. The camera is rolling. Like, let's get this on the actor. And so, I took kind of everything I knew about costuming and my personal passion for seamstressry and also a fascination with technology. And I started investing in industrial equipment so that, my colleagues, and, friends and all the professionals that I knew, I just started being like, hey, if you need it done, you need it done now. Like, I'll do it. And, that picked up pretty quickly. And, I eventually stopped taking other outside costuming gigs. And,
so you're the go-to for this?
I would like to believe I'm the go-to. There's still like a bunch of other, decorated apparel companies here in Atlanta, and they're great. The differential for how I do things is most traditional embroidery and t-shirt printing, et cetera, companies, they have like a set of minimums and rules, and like, oh, our turnaround is this and that. I basically broke it down into, yes, you can have one of these and you can have it now. Here's the cost. And it is obviously a higher
right.
cost.
But that's all they need. They don't need a dozen.
They don't need a dozen. And, and also it was I kind of started to think about it in a way that pretty much every film crew you meet every film crew you meet is a small business.
Right. And
they are small businesses that, their life cycle is sometimes 1 week. Their life cycle is sometimes 1 year,
right?
2 years max. And so all these different kind of like little small business, little startups are happening all the time, and they don't have, they don't have to outfit 36 people, 12 people. They have to outfit a handful, which is kind of the same in the startup community. Whereas, working business to business, no longer are people ordering. I mean, it's becoming increasingly often for people to be ordering 6 shirts for their team and then 12 shirts next time. And then, as they grow, they grow up, but they're not necessarily coming to the plate and saying, I need to outfit 500 employees.
Right. And your service isn't for that necessarily. Yours is for the person that needs 4. Mm-hmm. And I need 4 in yellow. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Yeah.
Size
which is
large, or size whatever. I bet you can make it pretty custom, even the
Absolutely.
size.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a true entrepreneur. I mean, you saw a problem and you had a lot of empathy to understand really what their issue was, and you just tried to find a solution that made sense for both of you.
Right, exactly. It's something I've received a little bit of skepticism from other, I like to network a lot with other people in the industry and people who've had embroidery companies. They've got 80 heads and, a number of employees.
But that's a different business.
They're doing all this all the time.
You're doing a different thing.
Exactly. No, I agree entirely. And, I think that, change is always necessary. And so finding the way to make that make sense is really what I kind of set out to do, and I really enjoy doing it.
So now, sometimes you make one item.
That's correct.
And then, what's the most you've ever sold one, police officer outfit? Yeah.
Well, I'll say for film purposes. I think the most police officer patches we've done is about to come out on HBO next fall. Tune in for Watchmen next year. But if you've seen any trailers whatsoever for the upcoming season of Watchmen, which is, oh gosh, I hope I'm right. DC? Is it Marvel?
I don't know.
Oh man. It's a
comic book.
It's a
it
comic
was a graphic
book.
novel.
Mm-hmm.
It was a movie, and then now it's a series.
Exactly. And what you'll see from the trailers coming out is that, one of the kind of, really ominous images that they have going on are these hundreds and hundreds of these kind of masked officials that are, it's kind of a post-apocalyptic setting, but each of them have 2 police patches on their uniform, and and
you can't buy that at the police officer store.
No. So everything that's a good question, because everything also has to, and the other reason things need to happen so quickly is because they have to jump through so many hoops on their end. So the costume designer says this, I've done the research. This is what the patch would look like. Okay, let's go to the art department and make something that's like it enough to be very believable, but also it has to pass through legal, and legal has to say we are allowed to use this. And then of course, the producer and the powers that be everybody has to sign off on this. And so by the time you've gotten all these voices together, it's like, great, it shoots tomorrow. So yeah, that's a great question. So,
and then there's also, sometimes you make a singular item that's super important.
Yeah, like a hero prop,
Right.
One such example of this that I talk about all the time is, early on we worked on, Baby Driver when it was filming here in Atlanta. And, if you've seen the movie, there's this part where the star, the lead actor, he's in a chase, and he runs into, underground Atlanta and, pulls a jacket off the rack and, flips it on, and then the camera focuses on it, and it's this ridiculous, like, hot pink "Welcome to Atlanta" giant embroidered back piece on it. And it was really great to see that in the theater, because that ended up being a joke that people laughed at, and I was like, that is an interesting experience. That being able to have a part of that. Of course, that is seen in the movie as one item. That was actually 10 jackets, because you've got to have one for him, one for the stunt double. You got to get blood all over it. You got to try again.
Right.
So yeah. So, so what is often one item is,
10 items.
is actually 10 items.
Right.
So, just these little ways that, film really puts its own unique kind of set of needs on an industry that's been around for a really long time.
So now, how did Georgia State help in your career, or did it?
Well, I'll say, so I went to Georgia State for my undergraduate, degree, and I majored
in embroidery.
I majored in embroidery. No, actually, it's, I get ready for this. I had a bachelor's of interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in Italian.
Oh, another Italian. This
exactly.
Is a theme.
I was like, we're going to come to this subject again.
The last guest spent 2 years in Italy.
Did he say
from
where?
the last show? No, she didn't say where. Did she?
She probably did, but I don't remember. And I spent the last 12 days in Italy.
Oh, where?
In Florence mostly.
Beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So having, this interdisciplinary studies major, it was a really unique challenge. And one of the reasons I came to Georgia State is because I really wanted to go to college in an urban environment. And so then when the reason I settled on Italian is because I actually started as a voice major. I have a lovely singing voice, and that's what's coming next. So,
because they have it like an opera program here.
They do. It's right across the road here. But
are you serious? They have an opera program at college.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. It's really nice. The Rialto Theater is a
right
throwing
here.
stone away from you.
Right.
So in studying Italian, I realized that I really didn't see my career going, to the stage. But I was really enthralled with, the literature and the poetry and the culture. And so I ended up, kind of following that into continuing the Italian studies. And, in doing this interdisciplinary major, I was able to do kind of, a unique combination of things, which also included, 2 semesters in Venice. And
and that was part of the study abroad program?
Mm-hmm, yeah. So I did a summer study abroad in Perugia, which is further south. It's right in the middle of the country. And then obviously Venice is right up on the coast on the north side, which it's beautiful culture. Also, kind of while it's like an urban island, but very, condensed. It's a very, very, very interesting place to be.
So did any of this inform your art in embroidery? Textiles?
I would say so. I would say that, the Italian culture has so much history in textiles and costume design, and it's very apparent there. And I would seek out kind of any opportunity I could to just really admire the work. If there were exhibits of historical clothing or costumes. Of course, it wasn't actually a part of my curriculum. Nobody was asking me to do it, but it was
just an interest.
It was an interest that I always followed up on privately. And if you'd asked me then, if I saw myself doing what I do now, the answer is no. I didn't even really know that the film industry was going to be around the corner at the time. But
so how'd you get your first foray into a film situation?
Well, so I just kept on bugging people. Honestly, I had met
just through costuming. You were like, "Hey, I want to."
Yeah.
Like a PA in the costuming department or something.
Yeah. I had made friends who were kind of further along in their careers, mostly like art department and people who are actually, making their own projects. And I would say, okay, well, I don't really have that much to do, or I have, extra time on my hands. Let me put some things together for you. Let me show up and help you, keep continuity into what's going on screen, and, at the time it's mostly unpaid little, projects that we're doing with my friends. And then eventually, what ended up happening is I ended up working for a costuming warehouse here in Atlanta. It's another women-owned business called Southeast Costume Company. And, they're another business that popped out of the necessity of the film industry being here. So it's a unique style costume house where they warehouse, uniforms. So, say that you're shooting something and they're like, we have, 12 Dayton, Ohio police officers. So they need, not only do they need the right sizes, but they need the right colors, and ideally, have the belt and the shoes and the holster and the hat.
People don't realize how much stuff there is.
So much stuff. And so there's this enormous warehouse on the north side of town. And so I met these other these 2 women entrepreneurs who had, had the guts to put their resources together and build this thing, which is, it's a kind of, industry that does exist out in LA. There are multiple costume houses just like this. But really there was nothing at the time here. And so,
and again, time is money. So
exactly,
when there is something here, they're going to pick the thing here because they can get it today.
Exactly. So working for them for a few years also really, I met so many costume designers, so many costume supervisors, and then also kind of gained, in addition to, kind of the on-set aspect of what's happening, really what's happening over and over and over and over again on every production.
Because you're learning the business and what their needs are. And it sounds like you really came up with a solution to a problem that's a real problem. And then, but you did kind of make the investment into equipment. Like, this isn't something you just said, I'll just do this myself. You had to buy like things that cost money.
Yeah, I've spent a ton of money on this stuff. We recently did just kind of up the ante and buy even more equipment. So for the past 4 years, I've done exclusively machine embroidery, and which has been great. And it's kind of shocking that there's enough, of that to go around. But also, I decided that the other aspect of things that they need is, printed T-shirts. And traditional screen printing, it's really not economical to do less than 50 pieces. And so there's technology for digital T-shirt printing now, and so basically it's kind of miraculous how speedy it is, and so that's
so how fast can you make a T-shirt now?
I mean, I've been in a situation where it's like, okay, text me or email me that picture on your phone, and then within 2 minutes, I'm gonna have you wearing that on a garment, which is really, it's technology that is, obviously kind of springing up worldwide, but to have it and to be set up and have the contacts and the people who are having these needs, just to say, you thought we were fast before.
You haven't seen anything.
We are faster now.
So now in your work, because you do the embroidery, are you doing like kind of the crew jackets after the shoot's over? Are you doing some of the fun stuff that they're doing to celebrate?
Yeah. That's always fun as well. I really enjoy doing the crew gifts. And then that actually, the one kind of, sad part about it is sometimes, I send this embroidery off and I've worked really hard and it's perfect and it's ready to go on camera. And then I worry about it like 2 weeks later. It's like, who's taking care of this patch now?
Right.
But when it comes to like wrap gifts, that's something that people kind of hold on to for sentimental
For
value.
sure.
And it really connects me to the people I'm working with. And I'm really proud to be able to offer that to them. So it's, there's, aside from the on-camera work, there are other needs that they have. And of course, around Christmas time, I'll tell you, the film people love giving each other gifts.
That's it. They're very generous people.
They're generous.
With the film budgets.
And they have, you should, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to look into,
the stress of
providing
that world, huh?
stress management and relationship counseling within film communities, because
Exactly.
those people work 12 plus hour days every day, and
they have the real stress of deadlines, and every hour is times 200 people. Like that, their time is different time than regular people's time.
Right. So that might be something worth
hurry
looking
up
into.
Hurry up and wait.
I love that phrase. Yeah.
That's how it is in that business. So if somebody wanted to learn more and get a hold of some of your work, what's the website? What are the coordinates?
Yeah, it's tulipcake.com, and I will go ahead and explain that because we are neither a florist nor a bakery. So Tulipcake is actually, the way that came about is it's an anagram of my name that somebody pointed out, and I was like, great, I need an LLC. So so that's what kind of stuck, and I've considered changing a couple times, but the amount of trust that name has built between the people that I work with and myself, I think is worth keeping.
And what's next for you guys?
So we're working on the online platform so that people, the listeners
so
here
outside of the film industry,
yeah.
so if somebody else needs kind of a one-off or a few.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working on the kind of the tech angle to make that a little more self-service, so that people can kind of mock up what they're looking for and get a general idea before we really kind of confirm. The quote is kind of the longest part of the process. Is just figuring out the logistics.
So you're going to be doing
what.
Custom T-shirts and things like that.
Yeah, we're looking for Georgia State's business. So come get your T-shirts.
Well, you're right in the belly of the beast here at the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. A lot of startups.
And I'll tell you what, our shop is actually located right next to the Georgia State Stadium.
All right.
About 1 block. So come see us after games.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
All right. This is Lee Cantor for Stone Payton. We will see you all next time on GSU ENI Radio.
Great job.
Cool. Thanks.